The Truth About Goblins. Chapter 44. Thinking it was already late, Kit stumbled down the stairs and into the kitchen, hoping to catch a moment with Cam or Ophelia before they headed their separate ways. He remembered the previous night with some bitterness and regret. He wasn't in the mood to see Annie, but he did want some advice. To his dismay, the kitchen was empty. He looked out the window, judging the time of day by the crowds, and thought that perhaps it was earlier than he had guessed. Too restless to return to bed, he sat at the table and sighed. His head was throbbing from a dull headache. Hoping for some relief, he poured himself a glass of water and downed it in a matter of gulps. And then he considered his options. Was he willing to wait around for someone to come downstairs? He really didn't know how to handle this whole Annie situation. And as much as he hated admitting it, Kit knew it was a problem. Whether or not he deserved it was beside the point. He thought of Saphira. If he hadn't had to keep her secret, he wouldn't be dealing with all of this. Maybe if he told her about what happened between him and Annie, she would let him tell the truth about their visit. That would solve everything. He jumped from his seat and bounded up the stairs. It wasn't long before he was out on Main Street, striding towards the tea shop. Even if Saphira wouldn't let the secret go, there was no doubt that she would have some helpful advice. A solution, even. In any case, he felt she would know what to do. As he approached the door to Timothy's Teas, he remembered that it was early and that the shop would most likely be closed. Still hopeful, he gave the door a tug. It was unlocked. Had Saphira got up early that day? This explanation fell short as he looked around the shop, finding it empty. He considered returning later, but his gut told him that something was off. Wasting no time, he made his way up the stairs to the second floor. The door to the apartment was also unlocked. He saw it and shivered. After all that had happened, would Timothy and Saphira be careless enough to leave the doors unlocked? He took his next steps with caution, his eyes scanning the room for the danger he sensed. But there was nothing to be seen. The place was just as it always had been. Aside from a few scattered papers at the back of the room, there was nothing suspicious at all. "Saphira?" He made his way up to her bedroom, careful not to hit his head on the low ceiling. She wasn't there. Down he went again, this time poking his head into Timothy's room. But his bed was empty too. Where had they gone? Searching the bedroom for clues, Kit stooped down and looked under the bed. He spotted something shimmering in the darkness. Reaching towards the little light, he grabbed what felt like a rock. But as he examined it in his hand, he nearly gasped. It was Saphira's crystal. What was it doing under Timothy's bed? He stuffed it in his pocket and continued his search. A second scan of the bedroom turned up nothing, but when he doubled back to the living room, something caught his eye. Sifting through the mess of papers, he found a ring, still attached to its chain. There wasn't anything interesting about it, but he felt that it might be important, so he decided to hold on to it. Satisfied that there was nothing else, he made his exit, grabbing a set of spare keys from a hook beside the door. He locked everything up as he exited so other busybodies wouldn't have the chance to snoop. As he left the shop behind, Kit gave the matter some thought. Saphira was gone. Timothy was gone too. The doors were unlocked, and all he had as a clue to their whereabouts was Saphira's crystal and a little golden ring. The real mystery was why Saphira had left her crystal underneath Timothy's bed. It didn't make sense. She wasn't the careless type. Although, to be fair, it wouldn't have been the first time she misplaced it. He turned the facts over in his mind, letting the throng pull him where it would. He couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened at the tea shop. He hadn't seen anything too alarming, but he couldn't stop worrying. And then he saw someone. First her hair, silver underneath the firefly lights, and then her face. She saw him too and tried to turn away, but too late. "Annie!" She sighed, letting him pull her off to the side of the street. She barely looked at him. "Annie, I think something's wrong. I went to see Saphira and—" But his words trailed off into silence as he eyed the rucksack on her back. "What's with the bag?" She hesitated and looked away. "I'm leaving." "Leaving? Leaving where?" And then he understood. "Holy crap, Annie, what the heck do you think you're doing?" "I have to... There's somewhere I gotta be." She looked tired. There were bags under her eyes. "I didn't want to make a big deal out of this." He was stunned. "But you can't leave now. Listen, I was just at the tea shop, and Saphira and Timothy are gone." This time he had her attention. "Gone? Both of them?" "Without a trace. No note, no nothing. And look." He pulled out the white crystal and passed it to her. "I found this under Timothy's bed." She took it in her hand, staring. "That's kind of weird." "This too," he said, pulling out the ring. Her eyes widened in recognition. "That's her grandma's ring." "Yeah?" He turned it over in his hand. "Never saw her wear it." "That's because it's magic," she said. "It's attached to Saphira, you know." His eyes jumped to hers. "What do you mean it's attached?" She felt silly saying it out loud. "There's an invisible string or something." "A magic ring." He didn't seem skeptical at all. "I think I heard about one in a story. Something about a string leading back home." He lifted the ring and felt beneath it, grinning as his fingers brushed against the thread. "This is great. Now we can go find her." Annie was less enthusiastic. "I'm not sure we should." "Why not? You said she's on the other side of this thing, right? We can follow it and find out where they went." "What makes you think they want to be followed?" That same fatigue resurfaced. "If both of them are gone, they probably left for a reason. And it's not our business. What makes you think something's wrong?" He thought back to his visit with Saphira just the night before. Their conversation, the secret. He wanted to tell Annie. He needed to. But he had promised not to. And Kit knew just as well as anyone that a promise given by a goblin was a promise to be kept. "Hey!" She waved the crystal in his face. "Are you blind?" He shook his head. "Keep it. I already have one." She eyed it uncomfortably. "What am I supposed to do with it?" "Give it back to Saphira," he said. "When we find her. Come on, let's get going." He tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. "No." "Don't you want to know what happened?" He reached for her again. "What if they—" "Kit, no." She recoiled. "I don't have time for this. I'm already late." She turned away. He followed. "But what if there's something wrong? Maybe she left the ring for a reason." He waited for her to slow down, but she didn't. She just plowed through the crowd, trying to ignore him. "Annie, wait! What's the matter with you?" He struggled just to stay at her side. "If this is about last night, It's not," she said. He wasn't convinced. "Listen, there isn't anything between me and Saphira. That whole date thing at the club was just a stupid idea, all right? There's nothing to be jealous about. I'm not jealous." She spun on her heel and met him head on. This isn't about you, Kit. There's something I have to do, and you can't come. He shrank under the weight of her gaze. But I don't get it. Why can't we go together? No, you really don't get it, Kit. She sighed. There's no we, okay? We were never a thing. It's been like a week. And I'm grateful, especially to your mom, but we talked it over and... She hesitated, looked down, and then she turned away. Sorry. He watched her leave. This time he didn't follow. Annie? The crowd closed in behind her, around her. She disappeared. A step forward, he panicked. Annie! And then he ran after her. He didn't know why he had waited. He didn't know if he was scared or angry. He shouted her name, but she didn't answer. Annie! Annie! He couldn't see her. Annie! She was gone. He didn't know where she was going. He hadn't asked her. He hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye. Annie! He said her name again, more to himself than anyone else. And no one heard him. He stood there, silent and invisible. What just happened? He looked down. Saphira's golden ring was still in his hand. Kit didn't know how long he had been sitting there, staring at the ring. He wanted to pick it up, run his hand underneath, follow the string to wherever Saphira was bound to be. But he hesitated. He didn't move. What was wrong with him? Kitsune! Ah, what? He turned his attention to Ophelia, lecturing him from the other side of the table. Are you even listening to me? She said, exasperated. Oh, sorry. He dropped his gaze back to the ring in front of him. What did he say? She sighed and pulled up a chair. Do you know where Annie went? No, Mother, he said, uninterested. Why? She couldn't hide her frustration. It's that abomination of a man downstairs. I don't know how he clued in so quickly, but he found out that Annie up and left just this morning. She covered her face with her hands. He's threatening to bring up that awful bylaw again. What? You gotta be kidding me. He groaned. She only left this morning. What's he gonna do about it? Extort me. Squeeze every last drop of gold out of me until I'm run dry. She looked to the window in thought. But what else can I do? Annie wasn't here long enough to lift the period of vacancy, so far as the law's concerned. This room has been empty past the legal date. She looked back to him. Are you sure you don't know where she is? Maybe if you apologized, she would be willing to come back. This, at last, got his attention. Why do I gotta say sorry? What did I do? I don't know, little fox. All I know is that she was upset about something. She wouldn't say what, the sweet soul, but she was definitely unsettled. But Mother, he exclaimed, I didn't do anything wrong. I know you didn't, she said, rolling her eyes. But an apology would be the thing to do. She should be apologizing to me, he said sullenly, overreacting over something stupid like that. She eyed him doubtfully. Did you say something to... Mom! Mom! They heard footsteps on the stairs. A second later, Cam was skidding through the beaded curtain. Ophelia got to her feet. Oh, Kami! Don't let him get me, Mom! He ran behind her. He's gonna harvest my organs. Your what? She looked to Kit. What's going on? He was already on his feet. You tried sneaking into the basement, didn't you? I didn't. You did. And then they heard him, in the stairwell, barking, growling like an animal. Ophelia wasted no time. "Upstairs, boys." "Wait, Mother, are you sure?" Kit heard Mr. Mussolini's footsteps on the stairs. "I have some extra cash from the club. Maybe if we give him some gold, he'll—" "Get upstairs," she glared at Cam. "We'll discuss your juvenile behavior afterwards." The boys headed for the third floor, only too eager to retreat. They could already hear yelling by the time they made it to Kit's room. Kit closed the door behind him. "Jeepers, Cam, what were you thinking? Your earthquake stuff isn't that important." Cam sat down on the bed, staring at his feet. "Sorry." The shouting from downstairs was getting louder. "Is Mom gonna be okay?" He sighed. "She'll be fine. Really, it's that giant balloon that I'm worried about. She's sure gonna let some hot air out of him." His confidence didn't convince Cam. He sat in silence, trying to catch some words from the argument below. But it wasn't long before Kit got restless. "I'll catch you later," he said, patting his brother on the shoulder. "Where are you going?" "I'm gonna find a friend." He opened the window. "Let me know how the boxing match turns out." With a final glance at the door, Kit left the room. He hoped his mother's saucy attitude wouldn't get them thrown out. Once he was back on the street, he held the ring above his hand and searched for the invisible string. He found it within seconds, and a moment later he was pulling himself towards its end. He knew he looked strange, but the curious glances hardly bothered him. The only images in his mind were those of Saphira in a million different places of his imagination. He could see her back at the shop, returning from nothing more than a few casual errands. He could also see her out with Timothy on another impromptu adventure. But every once in a while, despite his efforts to shut it out, he would see a different kind of image. It would fly through his mind and vanish in an instant, so quickly that Kit hadn't the time to process its meaning. All it left was a trace of a feeling, a slight discomfort in the pit of his stomach. It was the same sensation that could make someone's hair stand on end. So quickly did this feeling come, so quickly did it pass, that Kit simply ignored it. Saphira was probably fine. And now that he had the string in hand, there was nothing stopping him from finding out exactly where she had gone. Hey, hi, I'm your narrator, Miranda Eastwood, also the author of The Truth About Goblins. If you liked this chapter, remember to add, follow, or subscribe to this channel so you can hear the next one. And if you didn't like this chapter, oh well, I can't really do anything about that. In any case, I just thought I'd let you know about my Patreon. You can check it out if you'd like to throw some support my way. It would mean a lot to me. Not to mention there's loads of extra exclusive content that I only post on Patreon. While I'm at it, I'll mention that The Truth About Goblins is now available as a complete audiobook, and you can get it wherever you get your audiobooks. Thanks for listening.